Hey guys, my name is Will. You might know me better by Keep Cruising on the IH8MUD forum, and this video is specifically tailored to the IH8MUD community. Um, I've got a lot of questions about specific things relating to how to do 12HT swaps. I completed a 12HT swap into my 1987 FJ60, and I've now done a second 12HT swap into a FJ62. So I think what I'm going to try to do with this video is just give a basic rundown on what you need to get, how you should go about doing the swap, what lessons I learned, maybe a few things to avoid, and yeah, just a basic overview. So to start off with the drivetrain, general idea. For the record, we're putting this into an FJ60, not an FJ62. So into an FJ60, your stock 4-speed will work. I really recommend putting a H55 in there, and frankly, if you have the coin to do a 12HT swap, you should really think about putting a 5-speed in before you do a diesel anyway. But so 5-speed, highly recommend. My 12HT with stock gearing, 32s, and a H55, man, she's just purring at 75 to 80. She'll do 90 on straights, no problem. So compatibility for bell housings, that's a big question that comes up. The stock 4-speeds and the H55s will bolt to a 12HT bell housing without any sort of modification. Goes straight on. The F-Series engines and F-Series bell housings have the same footprint as a H-Series bell housing. It is important to note, however, that a F-Series bell housing will not mate to the 12HT side of things. So if you're looking to make this manual, and let's say the 12HT doesn't come with a bell housing, you either need to find a 12HT specific bell housing or you need a 2H bell housing. The only difference between the 2H and 12HT bell housings is that the 2H bell housing has not been drilled for a tach sensor. The 12HT operates, or the tachometer in the 12HT operates off of a Hall effect sensor that lives in the bell housing, so that's something you'll need to address. Moving on, flywheels. You can't use a 2F flywheel. You can't use a 2H flywheel. They're just a bit too light. You need to find a 12HT flywheel. Technically, a 2H flywheel is better than nothing, but the 12HT flywheel is obviously the way to go. There are nearly no 12HT flywheels left in the US market. That's something to really think about. Clutch components. Moving on. So for the clutch, your standard clutch kit that you would put in behind a F-Series engine will work just fine. So the pressure plate, the clutch plate itself, throwout bearing, that assembly will work, as will your stock master cylinder, or slave cylinder, excuse me. The only difference is you need to put in a 2H clutch fork, which are available new from Toyota. Not a problem to get, not very expensive. I think I picked mine up for 30 bucks. You don't need to change your gearing. I didn't need to in my 60. You can if you want. You can go up to 411s, whatever, but you don't need to change your diff gears. Clearance wise, you really shouldn't have any problems. My truck's on the old man emu lift, and motor mounted just fine. Plenty of clearance everywhere. Motor mounts, the stock motor mounts will not work. 2F motor mounts are offset, and the 12HT motor mounts are directly across from each other. Another thing is the 12HT, in relation to the frame, the mounts sit much lower. So you need to expect to cut the old mounts off completely. You're going to need to weld in your own. I built mine pretty much completely from scratch, and that generated some issues. My engine is now very difficult to remove because I didn't compensate for the fact that the studs that come from the bottom of the 12HT motor mounts, and by that I mean the rubberized middle piece, um, those bolts are at a pretty, they're very angled. They aren't as vertical as the 2F bolt studs are. So, um, yeah, now my engine is very difficult to remove. The 12HT comes with some wedges, some solid uh, metal wedges that have studs. I can put some pictures in the video of that if you'd like and explain that later. Just you'll have to be wary about the engine mounting. Power steering, most of these engines, unless you get really lucky, they will be out of a right-hand drive truck. So what you'll need to do is you'll need to have a power steering line made, a high pressure power steering line made to cross the engine bay from the left-hand drive steering box to the right-hand drive power steering pump. That's pretty simple to do. You can do it at your like most automotive stores. And I got mine done at Napa Auto Parts. A little expensive, but you can they do a good job. It's kind of difficult to find the fittings, but if you make sure that they work, that's you can get it done. You'll also need a much longer low pressure return line for your power steering. Fuel system, you can nix the coal filter. You don't need that. Your new fuel lines and inline fuel filter need to be diesel specific. Diesel does dissolve rubber, and stock gas lines for your gas engine are rubber, and they'll start to dissolve and they'll start gumming up all your filters and whatnot. So those need to be removed. You can also take out your gas like like evaporation condensing system back in your passenger side rear panel back in the back end of the truck. So you can take that out and just plumb those straight back into the tank. So you won't need that. Your fuel filler neck needs to have the restrictor removed. If you roll up to your gas station, or now when you roll up to your diesel pump, you won't be able to get the nozzle in because the restrictor is designed to keep you from putting diesel in your engine. So you'll need to either cut that out, or what I did was drill it out and then re-weld the holes. So that's something you'll need to do. Throttle, the stock pedal assembly in an FJ60 is a link system. That won't work. You'll need to either get an 80 series cable and hook it up with an FJ62 pedal that operates off of cable. Or you'll have to do something custom. So mine's kind of a fusion of two. I spliced a couple pedals together, so you'll need to address that. Radiator, the stock radiator won't work. The plumbing is on the wrong side. You can use it technically, but you would need to get some pretty expensive or poorly routed hoses. They just have to have some serious S-turns in them and stuff. And it would be pretty difficult to get one that would fit the bottom hose. Anyway, vacuum pot. You'll need a vacuum pot because diesels don't make their own vacuum. So I'd highly recommend, for all of this, I would highly recommend getting a full donor truck, or at least getting a truck that you can pull everything from. Just getting like a stripped engine off eBay, you're going to spend months tracking down parts. Anyway, I'd really recommend getting a full donor truck. Air cleaner. So your FJ62 doesn't really come with one. An FJ60, or your FJ60, excuse me, won't come with one. FJ62 cleaners might work. I'm not sure. They look pretty much the same. If to do it right though, get one out of an HJ. So you can get one that runs to a 2F. You can get one that runs to a 12HT. You'll have to mount that somewhere in your engine bay. You can run that to a snorkel if you want. That's up to you, but you will need a big pot style air filter. Heater hoses, there isn't enough plumbing. Well, the plumbing is much different on the 12HT than on the 2F. So basically, rather than get into a bunch of heater hose wizardry, I just took out my rear heater. I find the front one gets the truck plenty warm, plenty quick. So unless you live in the Arctic, you should be fine. Exhaust, I personally don't run a muffler. I ran straight piped 2 3/4 inch, straight down out of the turbo, dumps out right underneath the driver's side rear passenger seat. So sounds awesome. You get all that turbo whistle. I highly recommend. Electrical. Okay, you got a couple options. It depends what kind of engine you get. You might get a 24 volt 12HT, you might get a 12. 12s are incredibly hard to come by. If you get a 12, you really won't have too many problems. There aren't that many connections to do. Consider yourself lucky. If you get a 24 volt engine, the only things on the engine that are electrical are the starter and the glow screen. I really wanted to have the glow screen, so I had to leave my engine 24 volt. 12 volt glow screens are like unicorns. They're almost impossible to find. So anyway, I really wanted a glow screen in my truck. It took a lot of extra work. Now that I've driven my truck in sub-zero conditions, it fires up just fine every time. I've never used the glow screen once, and I've fired that thing up in the snow, cold mornings, in like high desert where it is literally below zero, and man, she turns right over after only a couple seconds of cranking. So glow screen, you don't really need it. If you have a 24 volt engine and you want to make it simple, you want to take it to 12, just don't hook up the glow screen. Take your starter off, strip it out, send it off to get it rebuilt as a 12 volt starter, hook it back up. That's the only electrical part of your engine. There's no computer. It's awesome. All mechanical, really simple. Great way to do it. That's what I'd recommend. If you want to keep it 24 volt though, send me a message because it's very complicated and I don't really have time to talk about it on here. Bottom line, you will either need a power converter. Well, yes, you will need an inverter to bring you from 24 down to 12 if you want to keep your truck 12 volt. I wanted to keep my truck 12 volt, so that's a whole different can of worms that we won't open up right here. And I think bottom line, final notes, I'd say it's totally worth it. A 12HT will literally transform your truck. I drive mine daily. You can pass people on the highway. You can do a burnout if you need to. They're really incredible engines, reliable. I'm getting 20 to 25 miles to the gallon highway and around town. It really doesn't drop even around town. They are pricey. Parts are hard to come by in the States. But regardless, I highly recommend it. If you have any questions, post below. Thank you very much.